So today I'm joined by Ryan McCarthy, who's currently the Hound Dogs manager over in Gibraltar. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Finally, we're here. We've been trying to sort out our meetings for a while. We kept missing each other, so I'm excited.
Absolutely. So Ryan, could you go ahead and tell us then about your early days playing football? Like who got you into football and whereabouts? What did you grow up?
Yeah, I think when my dad listens to this, he's just going to pull his hair out because my dad tried to get me into football early, but I just wasn't really that interested growing up. I was always into like wrestling. So like, I think it clashed when early youth football was on Saturday, Sunday, and I was just trying to watch wrestling at home. So I got till like probably around 11, 12 in school where I think more socially it started that. It started the love from there. So I joined my first team, Sunday League team, when I was at 13, 14, which, as you would know, that's super late. There's kids starting football at age 6 with the talent already. So what I would say on my side, like that I did have like a very, I don't know if it was physically or whatnot, or just a love for the game. I was so obsessed at that age where I do think I made massive improvements in such a short time. So from 14, I went from so like a trial for, it's called like Watford Development. So they're like associated with the Watford's youth setup, and it's like a feeder club for that. So it's super competitive. Like you go on trials for 2 weeks to even just get into the developmental squad, and like that developmental squad, it like brought like Britta Sombalonga. Don't know if you know him. So he eventually played for Watford's first team and then signed for Nottingham Forest. So there's a few players that have come out. So from my age group that I went over there, I think a guy called CJ Hamilton. So he's playing for Blackpool right now. So yeah, so it was a very, I think, well-known developmental on a developmental scene. And then from there, I think mainly non-league in England. So you've got step 4, step 5, and what I can relate to so many young players in England is that when you're around that 18, 19 age range, you may get overlooked, especially as a defender, because I didn't fill out as of yet. So when you're quite skinny, you will always see certain players ahead of you that, not to disrespect them, but I mean, like, even if they had the belly, for example, they will always go for experience, and which, yeah, it is what it is in non-league. And I think that's why there's a lot of frustration from young players. And they then now tend to look to go abroad. So going on to that, then that's when I had my first opportunity, PUA Academy and Stars Like Us. There were 2 agencies I worked with and I trained with, and they set up the trial to go to Bruno's Magpies. So this was around when I was 21. So I went to Gibraltar for my first time.
Sorry to interrupt, but before you speak about Gibraltar, I wanted to ask, so obviously now we can see step 4, 5, these clubs are getting quite a big income and they're doing really, really well. What was the difference between now compared to then, or is that not too much?
And I think this is a very big talking point, because even some of the players that have come over to join for our Hound Dogs project, they're coming from London. And now, just as recent as last Christmas, I went to watch the Dulwich Hamlet game, and they bring in like 2,000 people. So somewhere like that, like when you're at early age and when you're very impatient, it's easy to knock non-league football, because most of the teams, they say they train twice a week, and I don't know. I think, and then because you'll probably still have to work. I think that type of culture is I don't know. It's not, let's say, the highlight of the life. You know, it's not something that looks glamorous. But then when you go abroad, I also don't think the grass is greener. There's pros and cons with both things, and I do think there needs to be a bit more respect on non-league football, even though, let's say, they don't necessarily train 4 or 5 times a week, which other abroad teams will do. There's still decent money in non-league football, but yeah, it is I think a fascinating thing for young players, and I think we do need to find, as coaches, when now I'm abroad and stuff like that, it's good to give them the avenue, but also not to sell dreams. So it's not, oh yeah, just come over, really, because playing for someone like Dulwich Hamlet, playing in front of 2,000 people where fans are chanting your name. And it's a really that club, like a lot of players go linked to Crystal Palace, more importantly, and bigger clubs. So yeah, it's something that people overlook a lot.
So why did you decide to go to Gibraltar? Because you could still be that professional football player, or near enough professional football player, and living in Spain, basically.
I think it's just patience. I couldn't, me as a young player, I just couldn't, ego, pride. And it's good now I can reflect. And now when I coach the players that were like similar in my situation and stuff, it's just easier to connect with, and it's easier to be honest. And now when I look back and when I reflect, I think it would have been better for me to stay at a place for 1 or 2 years rather than bounce around every 6 months trying to find a new club for whatever reason, whether I wanted £100 more, like it's not a lot, or whether I just felt like I could go to a team that plays just a bit better football that suited my style. There was always something I looked rather than stay at a place and adapt my game to make me a better player. So I think subconsciously I was always looking for an easy way out, and it didn't help me in the long run.
So, I think, for me, looking from the outside in, I love to travel, and I think it's a great thing to travel alongside football. Before you went to Sweden, you returned to England in 1890 to Hackney Wick. What was there a reason?
No, so even Hackney Wick. So this is a perfect example. So I don't know I think on the registration I signed with them, but I didn't. It's just that they knew of me because I played with a team called London Bari that is now changed to Athletic Newham, and they were just closely linked. And Hackney Wick were maybe a league or two below them. So it was a thing of, I verbally said, yeah, why not? I might just get some minutes in while I was looking for an abroad team again. So you could be like, not dual registered, but just in case I didn't find that abroad team, then I could stay in England. So I think that's what a lot of people are doing now is you trial for certain teams. But I think the goal is to try to play abroad and try to live that professional lifestyle.
And when you went to Sweden, did you get that professional lifestyle?
Yeah.
My Swedish pronunciations aren't great, but the first team that you went to.
Yeah, most definitely. I think so. In Sweden, it was the 4th tier. So you got the Allsvenskan, Superettan, Division 1 and Division 2. So Division 2 was where I was at. And what I will say, I don't think the money was great, but what they did provide, if you were to look at and compare it to the non-league lifestyle in England, is that at least they trained every day. So Monday to Friday, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Majority of the clubs have their own gym, their own clubhouse. So it felt in that aspect, they have their own supporter base of that city. So in that aspect, it felt, it fulfilled a lot of, or ticked a lot of boxes as a player. I think the financial thing is in Division 2 there, so the 4th tier, a lot of teams had to still work, which is a recurring theme. So when you go up to Division 1, some people still work, but the pay is just a lot better. And then really you're looking full time where I like to differentiate the two. So full time could be a lot training, so that your schedule is a lot of that is like a second job. However, to go from full time to, let's say, professional, I think the professional standpoint is just the finances. So yeah, so that's personally how I distinguished the two. So Sweden definitely had a full-time vibe to it, but the finances. So I still myself, like, was sacrificing. I think I did like a window cleaning on the side. Like, a lot of people that come abroad, like, this is not the glitz and glamour. Like, you have to pay rent. So yeah.
So what was Sweden like, though, to live there and just to play football, even if you were window cleaning on the side?
Oh yeah. Sweden's cool, man. Sweden's cool. Like, it's just a lovely place to develop young talent. So they have over there, what I'd say is, I don't know if it's changed now, but when I was there, the Allsvenskan, so their Premier League, they have up to under 19s, right? So they would then potentially sign 4 or 5 from that squad of under 19s to push onto the first team squad. So then a lot of those players then come down the leagues straight away. And generally that step was Division 2, so the league I was in. And there's some quality young players. I remember a guy that came from the Prem, and we were training and we did some finishing drill. And like 9 out of 10 times, I think the 10th one he hit the crossbar, but the 9 times before it was all side netting. And I was like, oh no, this is a problem. So what I would say from my experience in Sweden is, as a training, in terms of quality of training and coaches, is very high to England. I don't think England value much as training. So see, non-league, you only train twice a week. It's very much fitness-based, chaotic, goals, transitions. It's not that much tactical work. And I don't think you can in 2 days a week. if you understand. Whereas if you have in Sweden, like you have 5 times a week, you can work on the little things and every little detail. And Sweden really does that well. On the coaching side, I think I still think they're ahead in England from my experience. They kind of follow a similar model to Spain, where I will say from what I saw with Sweden, because they're naturally big people and physical, right? I don't think they utilized that as much because they were so focused on the technical part. So that was the weird thing. So coming playing from England, where you win every second ball, headers and everything, I was expecting that in Sweden. But they flipped, reversed it. They changed the whole model over there, which I appreciate because, I think England nowadays do it with the under 17s, under 20s. You can see the new generation coming in and they're very technical. But yeah, it's still a long time coming to, let's say, chase the likes of Spain. Spain's been doing this for forever now. So
the second team that you went to in Sweden, was that like quite close to where you were before, or did you have to like completely relocate?
Yeah, it was similar to London in the sense that I lived near the city centre, so I was only 15 minutes away, and the train lines are very good and well connected out there in Sweden. So it's always like half an hour, 45 minutes to get to a certain team. So it wasn't too bad. But it's very interesting. Like the first team I joined in Sweden, so they were to the Södertälje, and I just want other players to know. Like I always just give my feedback on certain circumstances, and it's not. So that was the one where I was, let's say, one of the highest paid players in the squad, and I had an injury, and it's like I say, it's a lot of players would then say when they want that pay rise or when they want to be the top player and stuff like that. But when the team doesn't do so well, you're actually one of the first people to be on the chopping block. So this is the flip side of things. So even though I was injured and I didn't really get to show what I can do, when the manager gets sacked 8 games in and a new manager comes in and he wants to bring his players, he has to balance the books. So I just wanted people to know that as well, that it comes with its own pressures. And like I think coaches should be more, I don't know, can help the process with certain players with this.
Obviously, you then went on to go and play in Gibraltar. And before we speak about that, obviously, there's a few sides in Gibraltar that are winning the league every year and are the 2 dominant sides. Yeah. What's it like to be around that? Do you find that in 10 years' time that it'll be a bit more competitive?
It's very hard to say. It's very hard to say because for the last 30 years or longer, I'm not a Gibraltarian historian, but yeah, don't get me wrong, there will still always be phases where a team can have like a bit of a run and they could pip it to the title. I think St. Joseph's has been very unlucky in the last couple of years, but even St. Joseph is an established team and it's taken a while. I think it's just miles apart. I don't know if you've ever had the comparison of Gibraltar, the 12 teams now you have in the league. It is like the whole England football pyramid system. So if you were to say like the top 2-3 teams would be, let's say, being generous as well, like let's say they're League 2, right? And then you can get 4th to 6th, could be like step 6. And then from 8 to 12, it could be a very high Sunday league level or like 10th tier. So there's so many levels in this league. And yeah, as you would know, like the competitiveness is I'd say a problem, but it's just because of the finances. Some clubs can do what they can and others can't. But for such as the Hound Dogs project, which we'll get into, it's going to be an interesting journey. But how can we shorten the gap on the other teams?
Your playing career ended in Gibraltar, but can you speak about Manchester 62 and what it was like to be there?
Yeah, once again, I don't think there was much to say in the sense that, so after Sweden, this was during the COVID period. And this is the period where I was like, so my wife wanted to then she was my girlfriend. We were doing long distance. So when I was in Sweden, she was in London. Oh, so wow. She really wanted to go to Barcelona, right? And I was like, mi español no bien. So I was like, okay, at least in Gibraltar. So I just pitched the idea. I was like, they speak English a bit, so we can get by. And then maybe we go to Barca. So that little white lie, that's never yeah. But so that was the thing. And then I knew Davey well. So Davey Wilson was the manager of Manchester 62. And when I was playing for Bruno's, he appointed me captain. So he just knew how I was. We knew we could work really well together. And to be honest, I just went back to Gibraltar. I was a bit in a slump where I was maybe 24, 25. I wouldn't say it's not nowhere near like depression or something like that, but I did just question, like, I'm moving a lot now. I've got my missus. I need to find a job, blah, 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 blah. And COVID was hitting. So even in a job, you were working at home. So I gained a lot of weight. So I was very ill-disciplined at this point. And I think my hunger for the game really changed around this time. And yeah, I don't think Davey was just very honest with ourselves, and then just didn't continue. So on that point, I think I got a bit of pride back. So I like left, and then in 6 months, I actually really like trained hard to get fit, and I had a new lease of life in that sense where I was like, you know what, I'll give it a go. So I went to Europa Point, and this will come on to that. So Gary was the assistant at Davey ages ago. So in 2018, 2019, when I was at Bruno's, or 2017, 2018, when I was at Bruno's, Gary was the assistant and Davey was the manager. So Gary was now the coach at Europa Point, so he brought me over as a player. And I did think I had a good feeling I was going to be a key player there, like regain my confidence and whatnot. And then we had like a lot of trialists come over for a game. And this is what happens with trialists. They try too hard, absolutely studied the hell out of me, like knee height, got the top of my toenail flew off and everything. So I was out for I knew I was going to be out for like a month and that, because it really like sprained my big toe. And then just how football works, Gary was like, look, I actually haven't got an assistant. Would that be something that interests you? And then that's basically where it's taken from there. So that injury and the questioning about playing or taking coaching, it just came and naturally. And then from that, literally, I never looked back.
So Lions in Gibraltar, just before you joined Europa Point, was that just, again, were you enjoying your football then? So
that one was, yeah. I like the squad I was in. I think a lot of foreigners have this frustration with, at the time. Oh yeah, I haven't even got into it. Sorry, mate, because it's just such a. I'm looking back, and I haven't really put too much thought into it since then. So there's a local rule. So at the time I was playing, I think it was 5. So it's now gone down to 3. So it's a bit easier for foreigners to come in, and I say foreigners, but like people from the UK or from Spain. So they're the 2 main nationalities that come over. So at the time, I found it very difficult. When I moved with Natalie, my wife, when I came over, I thought I could become eligible for a local, like a Gibraltarian homegrown player, if I had a British passport and played there for 2 years. But just my luck, I have an Irish passport, but I've born and raised in London and England my whole life, went to college, went to secondary school and all this. I tried to apply for a British passport thinking I'm eligible, and I just couldn't get my passport. I was like, what? I was like, are you kidding me? I lived there for like 22 years and I couldn't apparently I wasn't eligible for a British passport because my mother's from Colombia and my dad is from Ireland. And yeah, there's a bunch of laws, especially when the father's Irish. So anyway, I couldn't get a British passport. So that dampened me, like the chances of, like, let's say in terms of a pay increase and more game time of not being a local. So that kind of disheartened me at that point. So at that point with Lions, it was just the game time was an issue for me. So yeah, that would be the start of the decline, like I said. And you're right. So that's when I went to Europa Point and tried it one last time. And the injury actually was a blessing in disguise because I haven't looked back since then.
For sure. So you just mentioned there you got a lot of English players that head over there and a lot of Spanish players. But overall, I think there's quite a big mix because I've seen Argentinians, I've seen Swedish players.
No.
The mix is quite big, right? Yeah.
So I believe it's changed now. It's up to 4. You're allowed 4 non-EU players. So that's players that have African passports or South American. So yeah, there's categories. So there's locals, EU players, and non-EU players. So there is still that variety, but because of the 4 per squad, or now it's 4, it used to be 3. So it did, it does affect a lot. So there's a few American boys that come over as well. But yeah.
Do you like that? Because I feel like if you're restricted to just playing a certain amount of Gibraltar or English or whoever it might be, you're definitely restricted in who you can and can't pick.
I think as a player, it depends when you look at it. If it's what specs you look at it from. If I look at it from a neutral perspective, then it's just you just want quality. You don't look at anything else. You just want to see the best type of football, the best players playing. However, I do understand the Gibraltarian perspective, which is how do we improve and promote young locals? And I wish I had the answer. I think many coaches will dibble and dabble as pros and cons with both. And now they've recently changed it from 4 to 3. So last year I wasn't really involved with I took a year out of the coaching. But the year before, we saw Europa Point go from bottom to 4th. So there is that room for transition. So it'll be very interesting to see how it goes this year.
For sure. So when Dalibor first came in, what was it like for you when you first met him? Because obviously we all know what he's done in other countries, right?
Yeah, I've got so many stories of me and Dalibor. So obviously Gary. So first Gary. So Gary we brought in, and it was very tough. We had specific requirements from the board where our hands were tied with certain like formations or stuff like that, which is fine because that's what Gary agreed to. So Gary had just an offer from Bruno's, so to go back to Bruno. So he worked there previously, and that was a great opportunity for him. So Gary left. Hence the position being vacant, and Dalibor. Wow, what a match made in heaven. But what I would say is like he did like a first presentation, and I don't even think we've had a conversation yet. It was really weird. Like normally when you have a manager and when you have an assistant, they know of each other or they've worked with each other and I think we didn't know anything about each other and we've just been meshed together. And I think what sums it up perfectly is when he introduced me to the players who I already know, because some of them were in his squad before, he called me Brian, and I went, oh, straight away. The players. That was the banter for the next 2 weeks. Everyone calling me Brian instead of Ryan. So thanks for that, Dali.
What was it like to work with him? Because he said to me that he's done this pre-season training drill, which is really intense, and he's got this like big sheet about it. Like, what was he like with you? What was he like with the players?
Yeah, I think like anything, I think Dali introduced more standards. He's coached at a higher level, and that was the main thing. He had to change the culture. And what I say like even for us personally, like what we can say how we developed and grown together. So our first month working together was nowhere near the same as 6 months. Like it took time, but it was always progressing. Even me, like he taught me certain stuff where, for example, as assistant, when I'm closer to the players and I already knew the players, let's say, on a personal level and a coaching level, he really identified and helped me understand like the boundaries factor, which was very difficult. So he will always forever be a mentor for me. And the brilliant thing I loved about him is that we really expressed our ideas. He really trusted me. And, you know, when you see someone like Pep Guardiola, I don't know if you saw the interview or the statement, he's saying like the reason why he is to grow is because he really values the opinion of his assistant. And that's Pep Guardiola. Everyone thinks he's like a generational mastermind in terms of football. But for even him to be humble enough to know, actually, for my own development, I need like new, fresh ideas. And I think Dali really showed me that. And that's how I'm going to take it in with my assistant now, Ross Gray. So
for sure. And before we get on to Hound Dogs, because obviously I want to spend a while talking about that. What do you mean by boundaries? Was it just like the player-coach boundaries, or?
Yeah. So like my personal boundaries in the sense that if I'm being too pally-pally with the players, if I wasn't being professional enough, or I would allow certain things to stand, like let's say, them just calling me by my name instead of coach. Sometimes because when you have a relationship with these guys off the field, it's just a bit harder for them to switch on. Or we had an instance where, and this is just, by the way, this is just perfect insight in what happens in coaching and how we can develop and stuff. So like I remember Dali grilled me brilliant in our first few, and he was setting the boundaries for me and him, and I knew, I was like, oh crap, I need to pull my socks up here. Where, for example, there was a player we thought that could play in a different position. And it was a bit of miscommunication between myself and him where I was like, what do you think about this? Do you think this player could fill in this role? And then I took it upon myself to go to that player. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? So I could relay back to Dali and say, I think he's comfortable with that and stuff like that. So there's my intention, thinking, let me quicken up the process and whatnot. But feedback from the player to the coach is I'm trying to change the system for the player. And then Dali just sat me down. We spoke about it, and I was like, "You are completely right." So even though I thought and my intentions were good, sometimes it's not about the intentions; it's actually the execution. And as a coach, you really need to be like this. So that was where I was wrong, where I thought, "Oh, let me just do this. Let me be proactive." But sometimes being proactive, you actually especially when you're not the head guy, you can make things a lot worse.
Okay, so it's just right. The right word is the boundaries that's got to be set.
Literally that, yeah.
So you ended with Europa Point after Dalibor left. You stepped in as interim, and then you took a year off, essentially, right?
Correct. Yeah. So just burnout. It was such an amazing season, such highs. But in that highs, you really sacrificed a lot. Personally, I think I was doing the analysis, helping with the sessions. I was still, because I was an assistant manager and the under-23s manager. So I effectively had 2 teams. So yeah, it was a lot, and it was a very successful year. And yeah, I mutually agreed that I could see certain things may have not been heading in the right direction, or just different views. So I just thought, I think now is the perfect time. Let me just take a year out, recharge the battery, spend time with the wife. Because as you know, like I'm working as well. And then doing that, and Europa Point, we were doing that 5 times a week. We were trying to catch up, and we were trying to make the right sacrifices for the team going forward.
So what was it like then? Hound Dogs came up next, right? And obviously Hound Dogs are one of the newer teams into the division. Am I right in saying they were like an amateur side before, and then they got brought into the division this year?
Yeah. So a bit about Hound Dogs is I need to put everything into context when people just to give an insight of the club. So with the Gibraltar League, there's only one professional league, let's say. And then you have the youth teams, or you have the intermediate league. So this intermediate league, it changes the wording. So sometimes it's the under-23s league, sometimes it's a reserve league, sometimes now it's the intermediate league. Now, Gibraltar don't have that luxury of having like a Sunday league. So as you can imagine, in other countries where you just want to play for fun, there's always that amateur vibe where you can just turn up and play. Unfortunately for Gibraltar, they don't have that. They don't have that specific league that anyone can sign up for, and it's just like once every week on a Sunday to play. So the only way you do that is if you book a 5-a-side court with your mates. So Hound Dogs provided that. Hound Dogs was the only club to really say, hey, look, it's about the love of the game. And because of that, and it started with friends, of course, but that's when players started coming like, oh, you know what? I have too much commitments. Can I just play with you guys once a week? Blah, 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 blah. However, because you have that, let's say, luxury, like where people just want to play for fun. And then you got this league where people are trying to climb up the positions to get more money, et cetera, and try qualify for Europe. GFA gave special license for Hound Dogs to go to the intermediate league. So they got exemption, I believe it was. So they didn't have to fill the requirements of having an under-23 players, a certain amount of players, and etc. So it was quite unique that it was like, let's say, a Sunday league team playing in a developmental league that was leading to try to be professional.
And now, going into them, you got announced as a head coach not too long ago. What was that conversation like? Obviously, you probably wouldn't have been the only person that was eyeing up the job.
Well, to be fair, it took a while. We had like 2 months of meetings because I genuinely felt that because I was with Dalibor, with seeing Europa Point go from 0 to 4th, 1 place off Europe, I've seen that. And by the way, I was with Europa Point with the season where they finished last the year before. So it's a thing where I could see the patterns. I could see certain things that they're the non-negotiables, as I like to say to my players. And it's not as far as much as people think. I think it's going to be very difficult because we've got a whole new squad. However, it will take some time. But I think that's the main thing, is that we're looking to be respectable, change the reputation. So as you say, like amateur, we are taking the right steps into making us a more competitive team and more professional.
How are you going about with these new signings? How are you scouting them? How are you finding them?
Yeah, I think it's been very difficult. at the beginning part, because like I said, with the reputation thing, a lot of teams, let's put things into context. Hound Dogs, even though they were playing in an intermediate league, because majority of the intermediate league teams are feeder clubs, so they'll be, let's say, Lincoln under 23s, or they'll be associated with a club in the Prem, right? Hound Dogs is the only team that isn't associated with anyone. So Hound Dogs could still get entered in the Rock Cup, which is like the version of the FA Cup in Gibraltar. So to put it as an example of how far it was off, Hound Dogs got drawn against Bruno's Magpies, who they regularly compete for Europe. So chalk and cheese, 13-0, 17-0, whatever the scoreline was. Yeah, crazy. So this was a key part of our meetings and stuff like that. So I think it's very important to respect what Hound Dogs offered. But coming into this, we needed to know, all right, what can we do? What the changes? How much say do I have in these changes? And the club, we came to certain agreements, and we're very happy. I'm very excited all round. So yeah, we're very positive.
Are you signing these players from the Gibraltar League? Like, are you finding them on LinkedIn? Because I know LinkedIn could be quite a useful tool.
I mean, the phone never stops, and the notifications are non-stop. However, so what we're looking to do, without giving too much away, there's a lot of players that I've worked with, such as Europa Point, or played with. So it was a lot of meetings one-to-one and explaining the project, and it wasn't a thing of selling dreams. Like I told them, it's going to be very difficult. However, once we get to a certain point, this is a club that you can call your home. I think a lot of problems, same way I talk about non-league football with players in London and they bounce around, Gibraltar is exactly the same. It's a carousel. Every transfer window, so January and summer, players just, if they're not happy with game time, they'll go to another team. There was never that. It's very hard to get that like loyalty. It's very rare you get a player that just stays at one club. Very rare. Anyway, we want to offer that. That's the culture we want to bring. We want to bring where you want to join us. And we're not just because someone's a bit better than you, we're going to change. Because that's what happens in academy football in the UK. Like, you could be at the same level of them, but they're not going to take you because they've seen the development of this kid grow from 6. Do you get what I mean? So from 6 to 15, unless you're better miles, even if you're a bit better, they still won't take you because that's their boy that they put so much work in. And I want us to recreate that at Hound Dogs and build these player connections and have a sense of loyalty. It's not going to be easy. It's football at the end of the day, but at least we can try.
So, Ryan, the last thing I'd say to you would be, what is the most exciting thing for this upcoming season?
Oh, I think I'm going to be very occupied. I'm going to be very occupied. But I think, we hope. That's why we're quite private in our work behind the scenes. But I just hope we're going to be a surprise package. I hope we can use that reputation to our advantage, where if they think they're going to have an easy walkover game, then brilliant. So we'll see. But I think as a club transitioning, I think there's a lot of things to be excited about. And for myself personally, to see that from start to where we can grow it, me as a person, selfishly, I'm only going to learn so much. So with the help of like Dalibor, who's still going to be my mentor, and people I know in football, it's going to be brilliant. And so can't wait.
Well, best of luck with that, Ryan. I can't wait to be watching you on at home. If I ever do get to Gibraltar, I do hope it'll be for the Hound Dogs. So appreciate it.
Man, we'll get you a shirt. And can't wait to hopefully see you soon, mate.
Amazing. Cheers, Ryan. Thank you.
All right, thank you for having me. See you, mate.